My daughter exposed my cheating wife. My wife and I have been together for 25 years but married for 19. We are high school sweethearts and have two amazing kids, a daughter and a son. I was honestly under the impression that we had a solid marriage, that our relationship wouldn't be like our friends and colleagues and we'd actually stand the test of time. Now I see how spectacularly naive and wrong I was. My wife has been a stay-at-home mom for most of our adult lives, something we both agreed, but after our kids went to college she began feeling restless, empty nest syndrome I guess. She would tell me she was feeling unfulfilled and felt like she had lost sense of who she was. I tried recommending hobbies we could do together, places we could visit, or even adopting puppies if that would help, and at first, she was all for it but soon began saying she wanted to feel like she was contributing and not simply coasting through life. I understood and was willing to support her. She never liked sitting still, so I kind of expected it. She complained to a few friends and one of them actually managed to get her an interview at a real estate firm. She used to work in one before having the kids, and I was just as excited as she was when she accepted. In the beginning, things were going great but after the first year I noticed some changes. She started going to drink-ups with coworkers, began texting a lot more than usual when at home and at odd hours at night. She even started wearing a particular type of perfume and would wear more suggestive clothing, nothing too revealing, but clothing that complemented her body figure a lot more than usual. But what made me suspicious was when I accidentally saw a message from a male coworker on her phone, wasn't snooping, which seemed to be highly inappropriate and flirtatious. I asked about it and I could tell she was slightly shaken, but assured me he was simply a friend and she would talk to him about his inappropriate messages. I do not want to be the paranoid, jealous, and controlling husband who chose to believe her and let it go. Oh, how I wish I didn't. Her behavior got more strange as time went on. She started mentioning how she wanted to be more spontaneous with life and even picked up smoking weed. I made jokes about how she seemed to be living the same college lifestyle as our kids and suggested she slow down, but she dropped an absolute boom when she mentioned in a drunken state after another night of going out that maybe I'd dim her lights and hold her back. I was completely blindsided by this and really believed I was messing up somehow, so I tried to do everything to improve the marriage, even booked counseling, but it went nowhere. Then out of the blue, that strange behavior stopped. My wife apologized for the way she had acted. She said it was like she forgot who she was, but realized what she had at home and knew she didn't want to lose it. She resigned from her job and we began MC. It was tough initially, but things improved immensely, and for the 2 years, our marriage was better than ever. She was more attentive, she initiates intimacy more, and would shower me with affection. The only problem is that her relationship with our daughter seemed to be in a nosedive. I would question my wife about it, but she would tell me it was a growing phase or a woman thing, and once again I would take her word for it. The funny thing is during this period my relationship with my daughter improved. She would call a lot more, meet me for coffee or lunch often during the week, and even bought me gifts, t-shirts, and stuff. I always told her it wasn't necessary, but she insisted, and I could always tell she wanted to say something, but would hold her tongue. Tragedy struck one evening as my wife was returning from doing groceries and she was hit by a drunk driver. She, unfortunately, lost the use of her legs and has been wheelchair-bound ever since. Things got really bad and she would make suggestions about me sleeping with other women, to which I obviously refused. I just choked it up to her depression and reminded her that I was here to stay because I loved her more than our situation. This actually made her cry and ask me why I was so good to her or what did she do to deserve me. Again I choked it up to depression and just tried to help her as best I can. Sometime later we went for our medical checkups. The doctor sat us down to inform us that they found a mass in my wife's throat. It was of unusual size, and because it may be cancerous they have to do a biopsy. My first reaction was shocked, whereas my wife was just blank at first. Then she started laughing. It started small then became hysterical as she began mumbling that this was her punishment. We managed to calm her down, but she requested that before the biopsy we could do a family dinner. I of course agreed, and we had our kids and immediate family over. I made a speech about how my wife was the light of my life and how we'd get through this, but at the end of my speech I noticed my daughter was rather uncomfortable. I thought that maybe it was because of what was going on that made her feel that way. The next evening, my daughter phoned me drunk, begging me not to hate her. At first, I was confused, but reassure her that I would never hate her because she is my little girl and I will always love her. At those words she goes on to tell me how she caught her mother cheating on me with a man she had never seen before. It was during her, my wife, time at the real estate firm, my daughter went on a road trip with some friends and decided to pass by a dinner they don't normally frequent to get a bit, and that's where she saw her mother lip-locked with a man that nothing like me. Apparently, this was why their relationship deteriorated and ours improved. I confronted my wife, and to her credit, she didn't deny it. Through tears she confirmed it was the coworker from the messages and says it was the dumbest thing she has ever done. She said he was always coming on to her and eventually wore down her walls. She tells me getting caught by our daughter made her realize the gravity of what she was doing. She wanted to take it to the grave because she never wanted to hurt me and was too much of a coward to confess, so she begged our child not to tell me. I am absolutely shattered at the revelation and don't know what to do. I now question every aspect of our relationship and wonder where I went wrong. She tells me I was a good husband and that none of this is on me. The problem is since that time I haven't been loving towards her. I still take care of her, but it's more like a nurse does with a patient rather than a husband to his wife. If I leave her, she will be completely stranded. She is dependent on me both financially and emotionally, and it seems immensely unfair. Update. Wow, had no idea so many people were willing to help, both on the post and in the inbox. It really helps to know we're not alone. I did something I am not proud of. My wife has always been on my case to experience my true feelings and thoughts about her, no matter how ugly or cruel they may be. Not long my first post in the afternoon as I prepared lunch for her like I always do, and just when I was about to leave her to her meal she suddenly grabbed my hand and once again begged me to say something to her, anything, because it was destroying her the way I've been treating her since our D-Day. At those words I just exploded. A lot came out of me. I told her that to me she was perfection, but since this happened she has become used in my eyes. I told her that the very sound of her voice used to make me want to give her the world, but now simply being around her makes me want to run and never look back. I told her that now she is like a dead weight around my neck that will never leave, because it needs me to survive. I explained that through all this, she is still somehow the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning, and the last thing I think about when I go to sleep, but those thoughts are accompanied by a pain I never knew existed, and it makes absolutely miserable, because somehow I still need her. I still want to hold her in my arms, but each time I touch her I have mental movies of her with another man. But what eats at me the most is the fact that she dragged our daughter into this. She put our baby girl in an impossible position and expected life to go on like nothing happened. I pointed out that even despite her current circumstances her relationship with our daughter has hardly changed, and that is the fruit of her actions. My wife just sobbed softly through it all, and at the end she simply said she deserved all that was coming her way. She said she tried her hardest to atone the disgusting decision she made during that time and has never stopped seeking forgiveness from our daughter. She will do absolutely anything to help me heal and recover from this. She also added that she wanted me to know that even if I never forgive her and end up divorcing her, she has and always will love only me, that she doesn't regret our life and marriage because it is more than she could have ever asked for. Apparently, she can hardly look herself in the mirror because of who was looking back at her, and she never wanted to be that person. I can see she clearly hates herself for what she did, but I am torn about all this. I never knew it was possible to absolutely love someone and hate them at the same time. I have decided to book therapy for me and my wife because I have a lot I want to say to her, but I'm afraid I'll go too far, so speaking in a controlled environment will be best. I also have this overwhelming urge to speak with the man she was involved with. It may be useless after many years, but I feel like I need to for my own sanity's sake. I want to know who was the man that had the audacity to actually come between a husband and his wife. I believe I will ask for his information during the therapy session. Cheating girlfriend is upset I threw her out and stopped paying for her college. With regards to the Meta post, I know I'm not an a-hole for leaving her. I'm more concerned with the way I went about it. My GF and I have been together for 7+ years, have long talked about marriage, and talked even more about future kids. She quit her job a couple of years back to pursue a medical degree. Last week I discovered she had cheated on me with an ex-BF from high school. I needed to use her phone to call mine, and when I unlocked her phone it was open on a WhatsApp conversation between them. I have nothing against the guy personally, but he's going nowhere in life and I don't understand why she'd want to be with him. Anyway, rather than sadness/heartbreak, this actually just made angry. Angry that I put so much into this relationship and woman that I thought would be the mother of my future children. Angry that I've been supporting her through college, including rent/food/tuition. Just angry. So I arrange a locksmith to change the locks the next day, edit, with landlord's permission, while she's at class, pack up as much of her stuff as I can find, and leave it outside. Text her of what I've done, and say if she wants to get anything else I've missed to have her brother come and get it. I don't want to see or speak to her ever again. Anyway, since I did this, both my parents and hers have been relentlessly calling me. They say that what she did is wrong, but it's no reason to throw away 7+ years, and that if I kick her out she will be forced to drop out and waste years of education. What do you guys think? Am I the a-hole here? Should I swallow my pride and approach this differently? Edit 2. The lease is also only in my name and she's never paid a dime of rent in the entire time she's been living here. Update. I was not expecting to post an update so soon, but I was hit with a bombshell this afternoon. Over the weekend, both of our parents had tried to come talk to me. However, I had simply ignored the knocks on the door and eventually they left. However, of course they know that I can't avoid work. So they wait outside my house this afternoon to ambush me as I get home from work. With them is my girlfriend. They insist I talk to my girlfriend and I eventually relent and our parents leave. Once inside, she starts apologizing and begging for forgiveness. Saying that our relationship is the best thing that ever happened to her, she will never forgive herself. Basically everything that you'd expect a cheater to say. And then she gives the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard. She says that a few weeks ago she found out she was pregnant, she started having conflicted feelings on if she was ready to settle down and start a family, and so she reached out to her ex for support. This emotional support quickly turned physical. This makes no sense. We have always talked about having kids excitedly. She takes out 2 pregnancy tests showing positive results. She also takes out an unused one and says she can take it now if I don't believe her. So she takes it, and sure enough she's pregnant. She says it's 100% mine as she didn't cheat on me until after she got pregnant. I asked to see her phone. She reluctantly hands it over and, sure enough, she's been texting him non-stop since I threw her out. I tell her I need time to process this and ask her to wait outside. Once outside, I lock the doors, unblock her on WhatsApp, and send her a long text. I'm reciting this by memory so I don't have to open WhatsApp and see her reply. Whether you end up having this baby is entirely up to you. But you should know the following. First, if the child is mine, I will be a good father and take care of it, but you will never be anything more than the mother of my child. We will never get back together. The moment you cheated on me, our relationship was over for good. Secondly, I will not interact with you at all until the child is born. Don't reach out to me until then, I want nothing to do with you. Finally, I will not have any role in the kid's life, nor will I sign any birth certificate until I get a paternity test. This child could have been the greatest blessing to our relationship and future, instead you turned them into an excuse to cheat. I will never forgive you for that. I have not read her reply, and don't intend to tonight. I also won't post any updates after this. I get the impression that the kid is probably mine, so I'm basically anchored to her for the rest of my life now. Found out my partner of 20 years has been cheating on me for a very long time. I, 40F, have been married to my husband, 45M, for 20 years, together for 24. I've been with him since I was 16, married at 19. A year into our marriage his short-tempered fits quickly became verbally offensive to me. I went to my father, telling him I wanted out of the marriage, and he told me to go home. I did. I felt I had no support and I really didn't. I stepped out of the marriage looking for someone else to attach to. I started an EA of sorts. Mostly just messaging back and forth. Never any talk about closeness or meeting up, but I was flirtatious. My husband logged into our computer and I must have left my email logged in and he saw what I did. I tried to downplay a lot of my wrongdoing. He saw right through me, but stayed with me anyway because a couple months later I became pregnant with our first child on our 1-year wedding anniversary. Having our daughter brought us closer to one another than we had ever been. We were really happy. Fast forward 2.5 years, and I again started being flirtatious with a customer at work. I lived in PA and he was in NC. No chance of ever meeting, but my intentions were not that of a married woman. Again, my husband found out. And again, I tried to deny and downplay it. He still stayed. I got pregnant again, but lost the baby tragically to a termination. It devastated both of us, but brought us even closer. A few months go by, and I found myself involved with another customer. This time, the customer was pursuing me. He lived about 2 to 3 hours away, but would occasionally come to my area. We both knew we were married, but it didn't stop us. The flirting finally got to a point where we agreed to meet up. I was shaking uncontrollably the first time we had closeness and felt extremely guilty, however I didn't tell my husband. After sleeping with my AP, I quickly learned I was pregnant again by my husband. I was extremely selfish and didn't want to tell my AP I was pregnant, nor did I want to end the affair, so I got a termination. My husband was completely devastated. He couldn't understand why I wanted to terminate the pregnancy after just losing a child a few months prior. Looking back now, I believe I was in a full-blown PPD. I started leaving work early to meet up with my AP any chance I got. My husband had suspected something but didn't have evidence of anything. I had confided in my sister of my affair and she eventually told my husband. It crushed him and he checked into a mental health center for help. I left with my daughter to my mother's house and it was then that I kind of snapped back into reality. What was I doing? This is not what I wanted. I went home and he took me back. I ended all contact with my AP. We did MC, but I wasn't being completely open and honest because it was our pastor and I was embarrassed and shameful of what I had done. I was lying to myself saying I was doing the work. Looking back, I know I didn't. A year and a half later I became pregnant with our son. My husband was still very much struggling with my loss and affair, rightfully so. I thought our son would bring us closer to one another like our daughter did. I was wrong. We both love our son very much, but it wasn't fair to think he would fix us. 2 years later, I started talking inappropriately again with our UPS driver. Nothing physical and no talk of closeness, but my intentions were there. My husband found our texts and flipped out. I begged him to stay, and he did. I knew I had really messed up with my 3EA and 1PA and I wanted to make it right, so I surprised him with a vow renewal in Malibu while we were on vacation. From that day on, I have been 100 faithful to my husband. Now, on to my title. D-Day 1, we were to go to a baseball game, but my laptop wouldn't connect to our printer, so I asked to use my husband's so I could print off the tickets. He was reluctant but logged in and hopped in the shower. I could tell he had been acting different for a while, but I contributed it to my previous affairs. However, something told me to check his email. Scrolling back through his sent history, I opened one of his emails, and it was a Johnson pic. My heart sank. I went to the game that night and didn't say a word. I drank like a fish the entire night to self-medicate. When we got home, he asked what was wrong with me. I told him I saw his email and he broke down and cried. Said he didn't think I'd be this upset about it. I started asking questions and quickly realized it wasn't just a Johnson pic. He told me that it was multiple women. I was in complete shock. After a lot of pressuring he started tickle-truthing. He told me it was 7 women total. I debated leaving for a short period of time, but I convinced myself that he gave me chance after chance with my infidelities and I loved him very much and wanted to extend the same to him as he did me. I asked him to go to MC, he said no, because it didn't work for us last time. I asked to see his phone and he would only let me see certain things while he was standing over me. I should have known then, but he promised he would stop. I suffered in silence for many years because I didn't want people to judge him or me for staying, even though I wore the scarlet letter for many years before then. We were hysterically bonding, and he was able to manipulate me into staying even though he had no intention of stopping. 5 years later, I randomly got a Facebook message telling me that my husband is a serial cheater, fellow closeness obsessed, and uses women like their tissues and throws them away when he's done with them. I wasn't sure if this was a woman from the past, so I asked when she was last with him. She said she didn't sleep with him, but they had plans to meet up a couple times in the last week. She even sent me a screenshot of him touching to her. I confronted my husband and again he broke down and begged me to forgive him. He swore he didn't sleep with her and backed out because he felt guilty. I asked how he connected with her and he said he couldn't remember if he met her at a local club while he was traveling for work or what because he was heavily intoxicated. Well, turns out this female was actually a mutual guy friend of his and was catfishing him. The hysterical bonding started again and he convinced me that it was going to be different this time, even though he still refused IC, MC and full transparency. And here we are today. DD3, total of 12 years later of his cheating. He was traveling for work and I just had a bad feeling. I had texted him, no response back. I called, no answer. I FaceTimed him, again no answer. Finally a few hours later he started iMessaging me. He was drunk, hit his precious truck and lost his phone. Told me that I only talk to him when I'm worried that he's out sticking his Johnson in someone else. I said yeah, and sent him the screenshot from the catfisher. He came home early from his work trip and had slipped up and said something about a previous affair I had never heard about. Then crap really hit the fan. I had a mental breakdown and checked myself into the BHU at our local hospital. I was released on Mother's Day. When I came home, I demanded he tell me the whole truth. It took him a week to provide me his list. 2010, right before we renewed our vows, he had started his cheating. 2010 to 2012, there were a total of 10 different women, some multiple times. Women he met at the bar, dating apps, his work and at a local food truck. He worked at WVU and had an apartment there because we lived 2.5 hours away. A lot of these women were much younger than him. I believe he said the youngest was 21, he would have been 35 at the time. He would use different names, email addresses, sometimes they knew he was married, other times they never asked. He only knows a few of their names and mostly used protection. It stopped for a 2-year period only because that's when I caught him the first time. It picked back up in 2014. A lady at the gym was being flirtatious, waited for him outside, struck up a conversation and 15 minutes later they were having closeness in her truck. The dating apps were reactivated and he was heavily drinking again when he was away for work. Multiple makeout sessions and another 6 women that he slept with this time. I'm only on my 3rd session of IC. I meet with my psychiatrist again tomorrow for the 2nd time and I feel pretty regulated, I guess. I have a gyno appointment scheduled for next week and honestly, I'm scared. We're separated but not in any traditional sense. I'm not in a financial position to leave, especially with how expensive housing is right now, so he lives in our finished basement while I reside upstairs with our 2 teenage kids. One minute he tells me he wants me gone, the next minute he's trying to sleep with me. I'm aware I'm in an extremely toxic relationship and I'm struggling with breaking free of this vicious cycle. My self-worth is at an all-time low. I feel he's led this double life and have no idea who he is. I've been with him since I was 16 and as I reflect back I feel he has manipulated me for many years. Some days I feel like I married a sociopath. I know I cheated in the past and am no saint but feel like I got karma back tenfold. If you've made it this far, thank you for reading. Any and all advice or similar experiences would be greatly appreciated.